The torque spec is as tight as you can friggin' get them.
Let's make a homemade tool to do that.
There's always time for sniveling and complaining later. See kids, this is why you need some sort of an education. What? That's too good to be true. Are you serious? Well, I don't believe that. Something wrong has to happen now. There's water dripping out of the... Welcome to Freeman's Garage. We're gonna put a swap meet engine into our barn find 1967 Chevy C10 Stepside long bed. And I'm not even entirely sure if this engine here runs or not. The guy that sold it to me said it does, but more on that in a minute. This engine right here is the 250 cubic inch straight six that we took out of our C10 because the engine block cracked, which was not just a blow to the ego, but also a pure shame. This is the engine that we did an at-home budget ring job on. We honed the cylinders with the crankshaft installed and everything to prove that it can be done. This engine runs great, but with the huge horizontal crack in the block, it would not last long. And it cannot be repaired. The crack runs from the front all the way to the back. Our swap meet engine here is also a 250 cubic inch straight six torque monster, and it should bolt right into our C10, no problem. And in just a minute here, we're gonna scrub this thing up. We're gonna put some fresh Chevy orange paint on it, and we're gonna drop it in the truck and find out if it runs. And what I mean by find out if it runs is, I didn't hear it run before I bought it. There was no way for me to do that at the swap meet, but it says right here on the valve cover, runs good. And the seller did assure me that it runs good, and you know that anything you hear at the swap meet is, it's good as gold. And the seller did say that this engine came out of a 67 C10, which is cool, because that's what we're putting it in. He said it came out to do an LS swap. LS swapping is not one of my favorite pastimes, but I won't comment on that. Did I just split my audience in two? Before we start scrubbing this engine up, I gotta show you the coolest part about this engine swap. These are basically two identical engines, but there's two different setups going on here, and I need your help making a decision here. Well, no, actually I don't need your help making the decision because I've already decided what I'm going to do, but after I show you what the situation is here, go ahead and put in the comments what you would do. On our original engine, we've got it set up pretty much exactly the way that it would have come from the factory in 67. For the ignition, we're running the original points distributor. So underneath that cap, there's points and a condenser, and that is hooked up with an ignition coil. For crankcase ventilation, we are running a PCV valve. That is routed the way that it was from the factory into the intake manifold, and this is the original hard line. The only thing that's not part of the factory setup is this vented oil fill cap here from the factory. It would have been just a plain oil fill cap with no vent, and our alternator is a modern remanufactured alternator that I'm sure came from some faraway land. For carburation, we are running a factory Rochester B 1-barrel carburetor. On our swap meet engine, for the ignition, somebody has swapped in what many would consider to be an upgrade, an HEI distributor. They did away with the points. Those are gone. There's no points in condenser. There's no ignition coil. And for crankcase ventilation, what do they got going on here? Okay, they got a PCV valve in there, and they got it routed. Well, they're just using a piece of
a rubber line. Well, they got it into the intake manifold as well. And on the opposite end of the valve cover, they are venting through here. And they are sending that through the air cleaner housing and through the air filter and right back down the throat of the carburetor. Hopefully the engine does not have a ton of blow-by, and that's just how they were making it disappear. But if it does, if it needs piston rings, we can do the same thing to this one as we did to that engine over there. And for carburation, that is a 1-barrel carburetor, but that's not a Rochester. That's a Carter YF. I'm sure it even says it on there. And for the charging system, they got an old school Delco Remy alternator here, which is awesome. Hopefully that works. And the only other thing I see that they got going on that's different here is they were pulling vacuum off the intake manifold from right here. And on a 67 to 72 C10 with a straight 6, the only thing they would have been using this for, I'm sure, is power brakes. I'm sure they had a line here running to a brake booster, and they got this clamped open here, that's not unusual to see that, because the deal with that is this is a combination manifold. So you have your intake manifold here, and then this is your exhaust manifold. Now they're bolted together, but they don't flow into each other. But there is this heat activated little door in here that opens and closes, so that when the engine's cold and you're trying to start the engine, or you've just got it started at first and everything's cold, it will allow warm exhaust from inside the exhaust manifold to make contact with the intake manifold, warming up the intake manifold. And that can help, keep you from having to sit there out in the cold, nursing the skinny pedal with your foot and playing around with the choke cable and all that stuff. But when these things get old, they just quit working properly, so a lot of people end up just clamping them back like this, and then they just don't use it at all, just forget about it. So the question is, do we take everything off of our original engine, like our points distributor, our Rochester carburetor, etc., and swap it over to our new swap meet engine, so that way when you open the hood on our 67 C10, it looks the same as it always did. It looks like we never even swapped engines, and we still got the completely stock feel going on? Or do we just leave our new swap meet engine the way it is, just clean it up, paint it, throw it in just like that, and run it and see what it does? Now I've got a purist bone deep down. But what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this thing intact, because I think it would be really cool to just leave it the way it came from the swap meet and just see what happens, see how it runs, see what it does. And we can always swap parts around later in the future if we want. Oh. Remanufactured in Canada. Made in USA. Remanufactured in Canada. Alright, let's get this thing out of the way. Before you know it, we'll be using the garage floor mounted winch to winch the 67 C10 in here. It's right outside the door here. And we'll be dropping that motor in it. Yep. Please don't flip over. Something else that I'm just now thinking about right before we start cleaning her up here is the amount of oil on the outside of the engine. Now, it's kind of hard to to tell if it's just grimy on the outside from just being an old engine that's probably for the most part worn out, or if this thing leaks all over the driveway when it's running. You know, there's really no way to tell, or it's kind of hard to just by looking at it. But I think before a guy spends a bunch of money on gaskets, we should, get it in the truck and see if it runs first. Although, if we did need to do something like an oil pan gasket after it's in the truck, it'd have to come back out. But I don't really see that happening. I think if anything, most of this oil is probably coming from the front seal here that's on the timing cover, which is, if that needs to be replaced, we can do that in the truck. That's no big deal at all. Our pulley here / balancer on these engines, they are two pieces bonded together. They're basically glued together. This inside piece and then this piece here, these are not bolted into the end of the crankshaft. There's no threads in here. It's just a keyway, and you just hammer these things on. And some of the bonding material, oh, okay, that was just a chunk of grease. Well, actually, this inner piece and this outer piece might be, are they coming apart a little bit? You don't want to chunk your pulley into the freeway. Well, no, that looks the same as this, except for this one's on the end of the crankshaft further, which, well, that's kind of interesting because, well, hold on here. I'm really fascinated because, okay, we hammered this one on to where this is flush, and this pulley right here, okay, that groove and this groove, they are, it's going to be hard for you to see this the way I am with the human eyeball here in person. Oh, okay, actually, hold on, I'm stupid. I was going to say they're not lined up, but it's because, well, is it because this is loose? No, that's on. That's, okay, I got this sitting on here loose, but this is all the way onto the water pump. And this groove, they're not perfectly lined up. It's almost like this is hammered on too far. Okay, so let's go back over here. Because the reason why we just did all that is because this one is not hammered on as far as that one. But let's see, does this groove here and one of these grooves line up? Obviously this one up here doesn't, but what about the back? Do they line up? Let's see if I can get your noggin in here. No, they don't. But that could be close. Well, it looks like we could hammer this on a little further. Or maybe we should just run it like that. I don't know. Let's get this engine cleaned up first. But another thing is, see, there's some oil here. We might not need a new valve cover gasket. I think it's just because these pieces here that spread the load when you bolt it down, they're missing. That one's missing, and then this one right here is missing. And those are not factory bolts, so we could just rob two of these off of that engine. And then there's also a plug on the intake manifold in this location. We could just put that plug in here, or we could just cap that off. Another thing is I want to pull the dipstick real quick because it dawned on me that when I bought this at the swap meet, okay, I did pull the dipstick out and there was barely anything on it. And I thought, oh, well, it's probably just a teeny little bit because they drained it when they pulled the engine out of the truck and then moving it around to the swap meet and whatnot. The end of the stick probably just got a little bit of oil on it. But at the swap meet, when I did pull the dipstick, the front end of the engine was nose down into the dirt. So it might not have been accurate. Whoa! We are over full. Well, the stakes might have just gotten higher. I mean, it feels like good oil, but there could be a bunch of water underneath it because, you know, the oil sits on top of water. And it was raining, and there was a trash bag that was halfway covering the carburetor. So, alright, let's drain the oil pan, see if any water comes out of it. Gosh darn it. There's a rigid code of swap meet ethics that car guys never deviate from. So if this engine's full of water, I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. What is inside of you? I have a feeling it's H2O, but good Lord, I hope not. Make sure you hold on to an oil pan tightly if you're gonna if you're gonna hold an oil pan off the floor and pull a drain plug, because if you're all patsy-watsy with your little fingertips, as soon as that oil comes out, it's gonna flip the pan right over. But like I always say, this is not a how-to video. Oh, there's water. Water coming out of here, man. Oh crap, this pan's not going to be big enough. Okay. Probably a huge mess coming up here when this pan overflows. Oh, actually, we might be good. Oh wait, actually this might overflow. You know, if a guy would just stop being cheap and get a real pan, you know? Oh, come on. Alright, if this doesn't start slowing down soon. Oh, great. Oh, great. No! Oh crap, it's gonna overflow. Is that the first time I've ever said crap on Freeman's Garage? I think so. That's about as extensive as my cussing goes. Oh gosh. Oh shh. Oh man. Alright. You know, I only have one... I only have one thing to say right now. Where is Angela Lansbury when you need her? Angela! If you want to see me make a mess, this is very possibly when it's going to happen. And yes, this is a Tidy Cats bucket. I'm sure you let something poop at your house too. don't think there was enough water to be up in the main bearings, so that's good. Although I am kind of thinking, yeah, I don't know. If I had all the gaskets here on hand, we would just take the oil pan and stuff like that off and inspect the inside of the engine. But a guy at a swap meet said it runs good. Darn it, that means it runs good. Well, now I want to pull a spark plug and see what things look like down in the cylinders. Yeah, this is not good. Not good. Well, I think what happened here was over the course of the 2-day swap meet, the wind blew the trash bag off the carburetor and rain got into the engine, and I bought the thing and brought it here to Freeman's garage, and it's been sitting here for a whole month with water in it. As soon as I got here to Freeman's garage with the engine that day, I should have pulled the plug, just in case. It's probably fine and it'll run. Let's make sure it'll turn over though. It did at the swap meet when I bought it. Okay, well, it's just slipping on the belt, so. Song blue. There we go. Okay. So we know it turns over. Alright, so this is a whole different kettle of fish here. I say instead of blowing a $6 can of gunk on this thing and spending 3 hours scrubbing it and spraying a $13 can of paint on it, we're just gonna throw this engine in the 67 C10 the way it is, and when we get it to the point where we're about to light it off, we'll put a little bit of oil in the cylinders just for some extra lubrication because of the surface rust on those cylinder walls. But I think we're gonna be good, man. Alright, real quick before we drop this engine in, let's look at our casting numbers on both of our engines. We'll compare them, see if maybe they were made in the same place at the same time. That's possible. The guy did say this came out of a 67. I'll tell you what all the numbers mean. And have I been entertaining you so far? I hope so. I mean, what else are you gonna watch? Old Betty Davis movies? Alright, casting numbers. Alright, let's look at the casting number on our old block first. Why did I push this far over there? I didn't really need to do that. 387,718. 387,718. Okay, that means that this block is for a 230 or a 250. I believe it's the stroke that makes the difference between the 230 and the 250 straight six. And this also means Chevrolet, GMC, Buick, Pontiac, or Olds, and 1962 to 1978. Alright, our engine block casting number on our swap meet engine is 3921968. So some of the same, but a little bit different. That means Chevrolet and Oldsmobile 230 or 250, same as the other block. but what's different about this number is it means 1964 through 1976. Back over to our old engine. Now let's look at the suffix number, which is going to be on this pad right next to the distributor. Give me a second here. I gotta see if I can even get you in here because it's a little bit of a tight squeeze. Oh, there we go. Now I already know what this number is because I've had this engine for a long time. F0210TA, Foxtrot 0210 Tango Alpha. F is for Flint, Michigan. 02 is for February. And 10, that's for the 10th. So February 10th. And TA is what you see on 1967 250 straight 6 blocks and on 1968 blocks. Now let's look at the suffix on our swap meet engine. I'm actually having a hard time here reading our first letter. It's either a T or an F. If it's a T, that means this block came from the Tonawanda, New York plant. If it's an F, it's Flint, Michigan. Looks more like an F, so we'll go with Flint, Michigan. 0528, that's May 28th. And TA, so 1967 or 1968. What does that tell us? That tells us that these two engines were assembled at the same plant, possibly within just a few months of each other. Reunited once again. All right, I'm tired of screwing around. We're going to move this engine out of the way, winch the 67 C10 inside Freeman's garage, and we're going to drop this motor in. Oh, by the way, did I mention that this chain? This is the chain that we found on the floor in the back seat of the 62 Rambler. Gosh darn it, false alarm. We need to clean up these threads on our exhaust bolts here for the manifold, because if we wait till we put the engine in the truck, well, it's going to be almost impossible to get these threads cleaned up. I almost put the cart before the horse. I was about to throw this engine in the truck and bolt it up, and then I thought, hey, don't we have a flywheel and clutch that we need to bolt to the back of the crankshaft? So I ran out to the C10, grabbed the clutch out of the cab, and the flywheel here. We're not going to use these bolts that came with our new engine here, because these aren't factory flywheel bolts. This is just stuff that, you know, this is just hardware store stuff, which I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it or that it wouldn't work, but you know, there's a lot of fasteners that came from these vehicles from the factory that are very, very high quality fasteners. These here are our factory flywheel bolts from our 67 C10. These were specifically designed for this application. These are high quality pieces. So we're going to use those. And yes, I know this flywheel and this clutch is pretty much done, but we're not pulling heavy trailers with this truck, so it's fine, it works, we're using it. Maybe instead of Freeman's garage, I should change the name to Cheap Wad Garage. Cheap Wad Garage.
please don't break. Please don't break on me. Made in China engine hoist. Get out of here, chain! You know what? I don't believe it. One link is getting in our way. We've all heard of the missing link. What about the extra link? These flywheel bolts, they have a very specific torque spec. The torque spec is as tight as you can friggin' get them. I was supposed to look cool. I was supposed to go. Torque. Blinded by the light.
I like to just wait until my clutch leaves me on the side of the road. It's just more of an adventure, you know? It's just what I prefer to do. Alright, so now we need to essentially clamp that in between that and this, but this spline area here, we need to have it centered. It's got to be right in the middle so that the input shaft of our transmission can slide through there. So let's make a homemade tool to do that.
This is how I do it. I take an extension like this, and then I take my disc, I put it right here, push it up against there, okay? And then now I know that the tape I'm about to put on here needs to be somewhere between here and here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that off, and I'm just going to go, God dang it, drop it in the dirt. I'll go right here, right in there. And then I'm going to very scientifically roll this around. This is how they do it at NASA when they're putting clutches in the space shuttle. See, the thing is, when you wrap tape around this, it's going to be evenly spaced. Does that make any sense? If you wrap a thick layer of tape around this extension, the outside of your tape is going to be perfectly round. It's not going to be lopsided or anything. Now I'm going to put enough tape on here to where it's going to fit snug inside there, and that'll help me center it. Close counts in 3 things: horseshoes, hand grenades, and clutch installations on 1967 Chevy C10 pickups. Stepside long bed. I've been taking a little bit off at a time because I put too much on, so it's too thick. I don't know why I put so much on, but we're not wasting it. I'll save this tape. I don't want to take too much off or we'll be going back the other way. Okay, just a little bit more. I'd say probably that much.
See how that works? Or how it works for me anyways. Pretty cool, huh? It could be a little bit tighter, but I think it's fine. So we'll push this end into the back of the crankshaft, and then that'll help us have this centered perfectly in the middle of everything.
Ugh, jeez, it's heavy. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Everything's heavy. You know, why can't I just be into bicycles or kite flying? Everything would be so light and easily storable. But you know, there's a lot of questions the man doesn't have the answer to. Like, how does mechanical fuel injection work? We don't know. I'm going to slowly snug this up and keep adjusting our disc in here as we do that. If we do that just slowly, everything will be tight and sitting in the right place. That's the plan anyways. Okay, see that's a little, I tightened it up a little too much. Backed it off a little bit. Okay, and I'm still able to move the disc, which I've got it sitting just about perfect in here. So I just need to work on this for a couple minutes. And then we'll finally drop this thing in the truck. How many times have I said that?
Alright, shoot skis. We need to reconfigure this chain real quick because this will be in the way when we go to slide the input shaft of our transmission onto our clutch and when we go to bolt up to the bell housing. So we'll move that end of the chain to this exhaust manifold bolt right there, and then the front of the chain that we have wrapped around the alternator bracket, we'll move that over to here. We could put it in either one of these holes on the cylinder head, but I like to go to the lower one. It has this clamp here for the factory steel fuel line. I like to go to this bottom hole because I just feel like if you lift here on the top one, even though it'd probably be fine, there's just not as much material up here as there is down there, so it just looks like, I don't know, the chance of cracking the cylinder head are higher if you go in the upper hole, so we'll stick it down there. Just my opinion. I'm going to get that bag off the starter, get that rag out of there, knock some of these spiders out of here, and then drop this baby in. Alright, we've been through this before with this engine hoist. Let's get this done before this thing breaks or flips over. The wheels are off the ground and we are twisted like a pretzel. I couldn't think of anything funnier than that. Let's get it in. Oh, we should probably take our bolts out of our motor mounts. Grab a 5/8. Yeah, I don't think it would go into place very well with those in there. Alright, no time to goof around. I don't want this engine hoist breaking. No, do not. The wheels want to send the hoist to the left, to my left. That's not what we want. We want it straight. Okay, now up a bit more. Okay, I think that'll go. I think we'll clear. Yeah! Here we go. Here we go. Oh, these wheels suck on this thing. But they're doing it. Alright, that's what I'm talking about. Let's bring her down a little bit. The lower we bring her down, the closer we are back into the safety zone. Look at that. It looks like it belongs. Okay, we just hit firewall. Alright, let's maneuver this thing. Okay, we gotta pull back a little bit. Pulling back! Okay. Let's go forward a little bit. Oh, come on, don't. These wheels are so... Oh, I didn't even think about taking the fan off. We might need to, maybe not. You know, the big challenge is that the hoist does not want to go where you want it to go. Okay. Well, we might pull this fan off. Well, I don't know. We might not need to. I'm gonna lower it down a little bit. Well, actually, here. I'll show you what's going on here. So the fan might clear, it might not. I don't remember if you can get a 250 in and out with the fan on or not, because I've just been taking them off forever. But there's the clutch up against the firewall. So we'll see if we can't finagle her down in there. Coming down just a little bit. Okay, I'm watching the fan. Well, you know, I don't know, maybe I'll just pull the fan off real quick, make it easier. We probably could get it on without taking the fan off, but I'd probably add on another 10 minutes. It's Not worth it. This is how we do it. You know, this hoist is... This hoist is not going where we want it to go. We might have to take the engine all the way out just to reposition the hoist. Scratched up my mint original heater box that I restored. Because this stupid thing won't go where we want it to. Reach! Reach! Oh no, don't do that. Oh. Alright, as soon as I can afford it, I'm buying an engine hoist with bigger wheels. You know, this engine should have been in 5 minutes ago. But there's always time for sniveling and complaining later. Right now we're on a mission. Alright, we're repositioned. Let's go back up. See, kids, this is why you need some sort of an education so that you can buy yourself a really good engine hoist and then you don't have to put your engines in twice. I'm a joker. I'm a smoker. Should we just put the engine in sideways and make it front wheel drive? Aha! I outsmarted you. Oh wait, oh maybe I didn't. No! Like my hand on this oil filter is going to stop this engine from falling on me. Alright, making progress. Positivity. Positivity. Now we're at the point where we're trying to get the splines on the input shaft of the transmission to slide into those splines on our clutch that we were looking at earlier. We need those to go together. Ooh, are we sliding right on? It can't be. We might be. What? That's too good to be true. Are you serious? Just went right on. Wow. I don't believe that. I'm so confused that I don't even know where to stand right now. Tell you what I need to do though, I need to cut this mop top off. It's sticking to my neck. I guess the splines were aligned just perfectly and everything just meshed right together, I guess. It's not supposed to be that easy. It's kind of scary. Well, I guess let's throw a bolt in the bell housing on each side, and then we'll lower the engine down more so that the engine mounts are sitting down where they need to go, and we'll take it from there. And the bolt threaded right in. It's lined up perfectly. I'll get one more and then we'll set this engine down. Well, actually I can't get my hand back here on the driver's side because the engine's tipped up so high, so I think we'll be fine with just this one over here on the passenger side. Going down. Oh, hold on. I gotta pause it right there. You have to enjoy the feeling of watching the weight of an engine squish the coil springs down and lower the front of the truck. Oh man, is that something? It's time to celebrate with a mini DC. A Mike Delta Charlie. Actually, I just got really big hands. I still just can't believe that those splines were lined up just perfect and we dropped her in just perfect where it slid right together like that. I mean, just perfectly, even this way, you know, the engine tilted to the right or to the left was perfect because the bolts slid right in, went right into the threads. It's like something wrong has to happen now. But I also feel like I'm forgetting something. We put the clutch on, right? That's in there. I think, right? Yes, we did. I don't know, I just feel like something. Oh, that's nice. What do you know? There's water dripping out of the carburetor. Fan-diddly-tastic. Well, let's blitzkrieg through everything we gotta do to fire this engine up. We'll spin the engine over with the spark plugs out and no power to the ignition. If there is any water still in those cylinders, we can pump it out. We'll put some oil in the cylinders too. And then we'll put some gas to it and see if it wants to bark off. Bell housing bolts are all in and tightened up. The starter's in and tight. The bolt for the motor mount is in on the driver's side. Still needs to be tightened up, but I want to get the passenger side bolt in first and then tighten them up evenly. But the thing is
Probably a half an hour ago I dropped one of the bolts and it's playing Houdini on us here. It's gone. And I've looked everywhere except for down the exhaust pipe. It might be in there. I'm going to take my magnet on a stick and I'm going to put it down the exhaust pipe. I highly doubt that it's in there, but I've looked everywhere else. Found it. You gotta come down here with me and take a look. In one shot, we're not cutting this. No cuts. Alright, crawling under here. I'm holding this as steady as I can. Can you see it and do you believe it? Well, focus. There it is. Continuing non-stop. Oh. I just spotted a screw in my tire. These tires have barely any miles on them. Oh boy. That's fun. Wonder where I picked that up from. That's great. Great news. Great news, boss. Great news. There we go. Magnet on a stick. Link below. Alright, let's pull all the plugs out, squirt a little bit of lubrication in the cylinders, and we'll put a battery in and we'll spin the engine over with no power to the distributor. We'll see if any water or anything is left in those cylinders that wants to come out of the open spark plug holes, because that'd be nice if we could get anything like that out. And then immediately after we do that, we're going to get some gasoline involved and we'll see if this thing will light off. Got a remote starter switch set up here, and now that the engine is attached to the transmission, it does matter if it's in neutral or not. I think it's in neutral. We'll just say it's in neutral. It's not going to fire up right now, so we'll see if it bucks forward or not, and let's see if anything comes out of these cylinders. There we go. Battery's dead. Alright, are you still with me? We're getting very close to the magic moment. Alright, let's see what happens here. Alright, see you in a couple minutes. Probably not gonna work, but let's see what happens. I got a little impatient, so we'll let that battery charge a little bit longer, but while we wait, we will very quickly just make up this temporary wire to get power to our distributor. Now this is a 16 gauge wire, and this is what we're using because it's what I have on hand. Now normally to run power to an HEI distributor, I personally would run a 12 gauge wire and nothing smaller. And I would also use the correct connector to snap into the battery spot on the HEI. But we don't have one of those on hand because, let's face it, we love our points ignition here. So I'm just going to use a spade connector. It's just temporary. We just need to hear this thing run. When we get past that point, and we know we got a good runner, and the engine's going to stay in the truck, we will properly do all our wiring, which is going to be fun too, because there's more than one way that you can wire an HEI, or more than one way that you can do a points to HEI conversion in these 67 to 72 Chevy C10 pick-em-up trucks. All right. It is time for the co-main event, and then the main event. You know what? I'm going to try something. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, nothing's coming out of those cylinders. All right, let's put the spark plugs back in, hook the wires up, we'll put some oil in this engine, we'll hook the fuel line up, and before you know it, bam, this thing's gonna be running. Let's hope. What do you think the odds are that I can get the oil filter off with just my bare mitts? You can tell it's been on there for a long time. It says 2012 on it, but that might not be the year that it was made, because our filter here on our old engine, it's the exact same filter and it says 2017 on it. And it definitely was less than a year ago. Maybe, I don't know, you have to go back in the video library here in Freeman's Garage and look at the date of the videos, but maybe 6 months ago or something like that. But as far as we know, that is a Fram PH30 oil filter that says 2012 on it. It's 2023 right now. And let's see if I can get this oil filter off of this engine with just my bare hands. No filter wrench. I do get to wipe it off. Alright, let's see what happens. Ooh, I could have done that with one hand. That was easy. I was not expecting that. This Fram was made in USA. This is not the oil that I normally run in my older engines, but it's cheap stuff that I have on hand for occasions like this. And I was going to throw in a more expensive made in USA filter that actually gives us a larger filter body than this Fram here. But along with the cheap oil, I'm going to put the cheaper oil filter in, which I happen to just have this on hand too. It's a PH30, just like what we took off. And this one's also made in the USA, about half the price though. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw the Fram on,
And we're gonna throw this old Willie's lube in here. And I think maybe what we'll do is just run that for a little bit. Now this is if we get out on the road with this thing, if everything's good here. And we'll do an early first oil change with this, just because of, well, you know what this thing's been through. And then we'll put, we'll put some better oil in it, or the oil that I more prefer than I regularly use. And maybe we'll throw in a little bit bigger filter on as well. So yeah, let's run the less expensive scenario for now. And then when we do our oil change, we'll splurge a little bit. There we go. That ain't going anywhere. Nothing wrong with this oil, by the way. This is good stuff. It's just not my my go-to, if you know what I mean. Did we put the plug back in the oil pan? I put a little bit of oil into our new filter before I put it on. Not very much though, because it's basically mounted sideways, so you really can't put much of anything in it, because it'll dump out when you put the filter on. Alright, 5 quarts, that is good for now. Where'd that cap go? We'll most likely end up putting in another half a quart, but that is good for right now. Alright, let's fire this thing up. We're going to find out if the fuel pump works too, because there's lots of fuel in the gas tank in the cab, and expect it to run like garbage with things like that. And it's going to sound like a demolition derby car because we are running an open manifold. So let's get some gas in there. Let's fire this thing up. Oh, we gotta hook up our little wire too. Here's our power wire to our distributor. We're probably not going to get a full 12 volts with a 16 gauge wire, but should be fine for testing. Alright, here we go. Swap meet engine that was full of water when we bought it. Will it run? That's a start. We tune it from here, get the radiator in, get some coolant in it, and we hit the road. Hit the road, Jack. And we'll play with her a little more, see if we can get it to idle for a while. Junk battery is toast. Well, awesome. Next time we'll get a full 12 volts to the HEI distributor. We'll tune the carb, get everything running real smooth, get the exhaust on, radiator, coolant, and then we'll go see how this engine performs out on the road in the barn find. 1967 Chevy C10
Stepside long bed. I'm sending you to the video on your screen to watch next. It's another good one with this truck.